Hey, it's your old pal Lucid Stu again, and we are back looking at potential U.S. high-speed rail city pairs. This time we'll look at Phoenix and Tucson in Arizona. Let's check those out. Phoenix is the 10th largest metro in the U.S. with a population of 5.2 million. Phoenix has bus service, bus rapid transit, 36 miles of light rail, and a little teeny tiny 3-mile streetcar service in Tempe, which is a separate city, but part of the Phoenix Metro. Now is a good time to mention that Tempe is home to Arizona State University. About 55,000 students attend that campus. Phoenix is also home to Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport between downtown and Tempe. This is the 13th busiest passenger airport in the U.S. Despite its blistering heat, Phoenix is one of the fastest growing metros in the country. To the southeast is Tucson on the other end of today's corridor. Tucson is a metro of nearly 1.1 million people. Tucson's mass transit currently only consists of bus service and a 4-mile streetcar that runs between downtown and the University of Arizona, which has a student body of 54,000. There is also Tucson International Airport 7 miles south of downtown. This is a smaller airport handling a little less than 1/10 of Phoenix Sky Harbor's traffic. The Tucson Metro is growing at about 6% a decade currently, which is a little slower than Phoenix, but maybe a better transit connection between the two could help increase that rate. These two metros are about 110 miles apart as the crow flies. That's a little short for high-speed rail, but this project does have a completed Tier 1 environmental impact statement, and this connection is currently in the Federal Railroad Administration's Corridor ID program, which is meant to shuttle passenger rail projects toward federal funding. Tucson is currently served by Amtrak on its thrice-weekly Sunset Limited route between Los Angeles and New Orleans. However, you may be surprised to learn that Phoenix is not. Amtrak's quote-unquote Phoenix station is actually in Maricopa, which is about 25 miles from downtown Phoenix. The corridor in this video, combined with ideas of running Amtrak through downtown Phoenix again, could have a huge impact on how Amtrak operates in Arizona. For this video, we'll look at a few different options. First, true high-speed rail, aiming for a 150 mile per hour average utilizing one of the two electric high-speed train sets approved for manufacture in the US. Secondly, what the FRA defines as high-speed rail, a top speed of 110 miles per hour. This is close to what is described in the Tier 1 EIS and would be diesel-electric. And number 3, a cheaper 79 mile per hour diesel-electric version, more typical of Amtrak service. We'll start things off in Phoenix at the former Phoenix Union Station. This is not my first Phoenix high-speed rail video. I have previously connected it to Las Vegas and Los Angeles. Check those out if you haven't seen them. In the LA video, I opted to demolish Phoenix Union Station and replace it with a modern station. People in the comments didn't like that, so in this video, they get to keep their ugly ass out of scale building that is currently a rentable event center. Right out of the station, it's a tight squeeze past Chase Field, home of the Diamondbacks. I opted to elevate the line here, but a ground level option looks possible with 4 at-grade road crossings, and by taking out an alley that the stadium doesn't need. East of that, you have a rail yard that there is just enough room to sneak past. Again, I have this elevated and I'm keeping it that way for a while. Why? The EIS mentions attempts to adhere to Union Pacific's commuter rail principles. I'd not heard of this one previously, but found it and read a bit of it. Basically, UP doesn't want commuter rail on their tracks, and if commuter rail is running fast in their right-of-way, they want it pretty far from their tracks. Combine that with the narrow right-of-way situation through urban and suburban Phoenix, and you're either going to be at 79 miles per hour for a while, or you're going to need a viaduct. This is the high-speed version, so we're going with viaduct. The route would then pass Phoenix Sky Harbor and cross over not 1, not 2, but 3 freeways, and one of them twice. before crossing the Salt River on high viaduct while pulling into the Tempe station. This is at the site of the old disused Tempe station, which is planned for redevelopment. Makes a pretty good fit. The tracks and station would be located above freight tracks on a mile-long pergola, which wouldn't be cheap. Ask California High-Speed Rail. Anyway, this is our first stop. It hasn't been very far, but I figure it's better to maximize passengers before leaving the Phoenix area. This is 8.5 miles, not enough distance to pick up and maintain speed, so even a high-speed train here would make that in 9 minutes for an average of 57 miles per hour. But compare that to more than 40 minutes for the light rail system. Out of Tempe Station to the south, our route continues in Union Pacific right-of-way, hanging a slow speed left toward Mesa. Mesa, 7 miles away, is another possible stop. We'll skip it, but it adds about 5 minutes if you want to add it yourself. Mesa is listed in the EIS as one of several potential stops for different types of services like commuter. We'll come back to that later. A stop here is also made somewhat redundant by the light rail system, which runs a couple of blocks north of UP tracks between downtown Phoenix and downtown Mesa. One last slow speed curve out of Mesa to the south at US 60, and then that's it for the slow stuff until reaching Tucson. Just after that, in Gilbert, our train would finally reach true high speed, which is generally considered to be 250 kilometers per hour or greater. Here we'll hit our top speed of 200 miles per hour. However, the right-of-way through the suburbs remains constrained until the Mesa Gateway Airport area. Between Mesa and there, UP would have to agree to move their track to accommodate the viaduct. Mesa Gateway handles about half as much traffic as Tucson International. The former military base also hosts Arizona State University Polytechnic and a student body of 6,000. A good place for a commuter rail stop, but it's only 20 miles from Tempe, so we'll keep going. At this point, assuming UP is amenable to moving their track, we can finally move our high-speed line off of viaduct and down to embankment to facilitate grade separation. That's about 28 miles of viaduct through the Phoenix Metro, nothing to sneeze at. At Queen Creek, there is a curve that works out to about 110 miles per hour with proper super elevation. Luckily, there is undeveloped land next to it, which can facilitate a curve that could be as fast as 175 miles per hour, a very minor slowdown. At Santan Valley, the route moves south in another roughly 110 mile per hour curve. We're going to correct for this with a somewhat complicated structure that would need to cross over the freight track twice in order to maintain a top speed of 200 miles per hour. At this point, the right-of-way goes through the Gila River Indian Reservation for a couple of miles, which can be a touchy subject, so let's explore a couple of options. Right-of-way adjacent running is no problem. There's room for a big curve through some hills with a pretty big cut, but it's possible. Then that would go directly through the city of Coolidge, population 20,000, on viaduct. Option 2, go around the reservation and Coolidge and then rejoin the right-of-way south of the city. I think this is the better option because the path is clear and there's a nice 500-acre chunk of farmland that could be transit-oriented developed around a potential stop. We'll skip it for now, but at 55 miles from both Phoenix and Tucson, this would make a great midpoint stop if it were more developed. South of there would be a brief return to viaduct due to constriction by the town of Randolph and a nearby solar farm. On the bright side, that would also be convenient for making our electric train that much greener. South of there, the terrain opens back up with plenty of room for a high-speed curve into the corridor that contains a UP mainline and Interstate 10. There isn't much to say about I-10, it's pretty straight. There aren't any high-level challenges. The details can be worked out by civil engineers. There are very good conditions for about 40 miles of top speed travel here without any reason to stop. That changes about 3 miles into the Tucson suburbs where the UP right-of-way becomes more constrained, so we'll slow to 110 miles per hour fairly close to UP tracks, about 10 miles from downtown Tucson. Most of the distance would be needed to slow from 200 miles per hour anyway. The last mile or two into Tucson, there would be some property takings, some roads would need to be adjusted, possibly the freeway. All around, general pain, but nothing compared to 28 miles of viaduct through Phoenix. Unfortunately, they just built a 4-lane road across from Tucson Station that would have made a good spot for our platforms. As a result, a station here would likely need to be elevated above freight tracks, similar to what we did in Tempe. Either that or demolish the road, or the existing historic depot, but unlike Phoenix Union, this station is actually attractive. Anyway, we've made it to Tucson from Phoenix. It's been a little less than 120 miles thanks to the shortcut around Coolidge. I have that taking 58 minutes with the stop in Tempe for an average of 123 miles per hour, a solid high-speed time, although not exactly stellar. Before we talk about cost, let's look at some other alternatives, but make a guess now and keep it in mind. For comparison, let's look at an option similar to the Tier 1 EIS, diesel electric capped at 110 miles per hour. That's still fast, but slow enough to allow for at-grade crossings. We'll do the same express route for a clean comparison on time. Unlike our HSR option, this will be at ground level most of the way, which will hinder speed in the tighter portions of the right-of-way, particularly in the Phoenix Metro. That winds up being 11 minutes Phoenix to Tempe. The distance is just too short for there to be much difference with high-speed rail. That's an average of 47 miles per hour this time, not atypical of Amtrak type service. Once again, faster once out of the Phoenix Metro, and you still have that fast, unobstructed part along Interstate 10 for about 35 or 40 miles. That renders an hour and 35 minutes over 120 miles, while taking 65% longer than a true high-speed solution at a 74 mile per hour average. That would still be very good for U.S. intercity passenger rail. We're talking in the top 5 corridors. That is for an express service, and real service would likely have more stops. The EIS indicates the potential for 12 stops as a regional service. For that, at 110 mile per hour top speed, I have a time of 2 hours and 46 minutes between downtown Phoenix and Tucson International Airport. That's a 45 mile per hour average. And then lastly, I have the budget option of sharing track with Union Pacific, bolstered by occasional passing sightings and a top speed of 79 miles per hour, which is more typical for U.S. passenger rail, and that would take about 10% longer. An hour and 48 minute express to downtown Tucson, and just over 3 hours as a regional all-stop to the airport. Now that you have the options, let's talk turkey. Place your bets. We'll start with the budget version that ignores UP's obstructionist desires, but still recognizes that in reality you likely need long sidings to get around freight. Before we do, let's quickly review my cost estimation algorithm and some sample results to show that it's had reasonable accuracy in the past. And on top of all of that, the US has experienced recent rail construction inflation to the tune of about 60%, thanks to competition from other infrastructure as well as the AI data center boom. For our budget version with a top speed of 79 miles per hour between Phoenix and Tucson, I have a cost of $3.4 billion or $27 million per mile. That is an all-inclusive price, so you also get train sets, stations, and facilities, everything needed to start service. Now to the improved 110 mile per hour version, what the Federal Railroad Administration defines as high-speed rail. Per Union Pacific, this will have its own track, and you're going to need to separate that from UP tracks above 79 miles per hour. That's going to be more expensive, of course. Take a guess now. For premium diesel-electric service between Phoenix and Tucson, Arizona, bridging that gap in as little as 93 minutes, I have an estimated cost of $5.9 billion. That makes me ask two questions. Is 15 or 20 minutes worth $2.5 billion? Or why are we going to sit here and let UP inflate the cost of passenger rail by as much as 70% with unreasonable rules? Now for high-speed rail. You've seen the conventional estimates. You know we're talking about 30 miles of viaduct or more and a couple of elevated stations. What's it going to be? For the high-speed option, less than an hour between Phoenix and Tucson, I have an estimated cost of $29 billion. Ooh-wee. That is $242 million per mile. Look out, California high-speed rail, there's a new sheriff in town. Now, something like that might be more attractive when connected to a southwestern high-speed rail network connecting Phoenix to Las Vegas, Los Angeles, and San Francisco, and you'll have a better idea of what that might entail after you go watch those videos right now. Also, Mexico is building out its passenger rail network with an operational top speed of 100 miles per hour, and they'd like to run that all the way up to the US border at Nogales, which is 60 miles south of Tucson. In that future scenario, you'd be able to take a fast train from San Francisco all the way to Mexico City. While that might be a ways off, this portion between Phoenix and Tucson certainly seems doable in the near future. But what do you think about Arizona's passenger rail prospects? Which version is the best one to build? Let me know in the comments. Plenty more videos to come. My trip to California's Central Valley to once again document California high-speed rail. Construction progress is coming soon, so keep an eye out for that. You also have plenty of ways to support the channel. You can use that super thanks button below the video. You can buy me a coffee. You can also check out my Patreon page. Speaking of that, it is time to honor my conspicuous Patreon supporters. These hardy individuals help make content like this possible for all of you to enjoy. They know who they are, and now everybody else does too. If you'd like to add your name to this list, you can do so on my Patreon page. And lastly, I have a poster store where you can get yourself a vintage railroad themed poster while also supporting my content. But that's all for now. Until next time, I'll see you on that big beautiful freeway.